the YouTube to wake up. The YouTube is always the slowest to wake up. But as soon as it's awake, we are good to go. Come on, you. There it goes. There it goes. That's the YouTube for you. Coming to life. Coming to life. Telling you hello. Telling you it's happy to see you. The internet has given us permission to exist another day. What a weekend it's been, folks. Wow. What a crazy time. I hope everyone is staying safe. I hope everyone is staying home. I hope everyone is staying well. I hope everyone is, wow, what a time. We're going to get right into it. A special shout out to all the institutions, especially now, because everyone needs everyone else's help that make this show possible. First of all, ZT.com, ZHITEA.com. Their tea is awesome. Their tea rules. You can order their tea wholesale right now. Graham Elwood's getting his own tea, the Vigilante. That's coming out. I don't know why I don't have a tea. We need to talk about that, folks at ZT. Lucy left out of protest. She's like, where's your tea? Where's your tea, you phony? I don't know where my tea is, but go to ZT.com anyway. Order your favorite tea. It's going in wholesale. It's a lefty, great guy named Jeffrey who runs it, ZT.com. And also shout out to everyone at Trendy as Dabbers for their amazing CBD pain oil that has been very beneficial to my neck. I had my bad car accident in 2013. My neck has never been the same, will probably never be the same. And that oil does work some magic for me. So shout out to them for the product and for the swag that they sent. And Civvy app. I'm excited about this. CIVVY. It is a new political app. And what it does is it compiles news for you. It also it presents you political information in a digestible package. And what it helps does is it helps kind of like associate your views with what candidates and causes better reflect those views. So you kind of like, you say what you're looking for. It kind of compiles it for you accordingly. And the goal of the app is to eventually be a hub for independent media. They don't have a political leaning one way or another. They just kind of compile the information and make it in a very digestible way. So that's the Civvy app, CIVVY app. It's a new app. I'm going to be diving into it more and learning more about it, and I'm real excited for that. And I'm real excited about my guest today, friend of the show. She's had a pretty crazy weekend. The world has had a pretty crazy weekend, but let's welcome her back to the show. Please welcome Tina Desiree Berg. Tina, how are you? Welcome back.
Yeah, happy to be here, Ron, to discuss all of this stuff with you.
What a weekend. So the short story is your car windshield was shot out by rubber bullets by police. Here's a photo of it. We'll start with the photo. This happened to your car. You were a reporter. Well, you still are a reporter. You have not. You didn't quit. You didn't quit, did you? This weekend wasn't the breaking point, was it?
I didn't quit. I think my cameraman might have quit. He has PTSD.
Oh, geez. So this happened to you this weekend, and we were both in Beverly Hills on Saturday at different times. And so we're gonna kind of unpack what happened, what's been happening. There's some footage I got from Pasadena, some footage from Beverly Hills, some footage from other areas in LA where an LAPD car just straight up ran somebody over. There was no ambiguity this time. And so I was there earlier. I went there around noon, and one of the photos that I took that I posted on my Instagram was a photo of, as we were walking by to the park where it all started, we saw this big congregation of police. They were meeting in some area. There was a big fence there. You couldn't get close to it. So people were taking videos and photos, through the fence. Like, that's what I did. I just stuck my phone up to a fence, took a photo, because, we were kind of thinking, I have no idea what they're saying, but I'm sure it's likely not, let's respect everybody's right to protest and assemble. I'm sure that's not what they were saying. So we took the photo, and, here was my experience as someone who was there earlier, and everybody who was there during the early hours before things got super chaotic. They all had the same thing to say. Everything was completely 1000% peaceful.
Yeah. And
then the cops showed up. And I mean, when I started in the field, and it just seemed like a really chill, folk music festival vibe.
Right.
Like, I mean, people were impassioned. People were talking about the issues. People had the signs. Like they knew the cause they were there for, but it was completely, I mean, people were playing music. People were handing out literature. People were talking. People were engaging, and they were trying to social distance through all this too, mind you. We had our face masks on. We were trying to keep our distance. It was 1000% peaceful. Then we marched, and it remained peaceful. A buddy of mine, my college agent, actually, who was also out there protesting, he experienced some things while he was marching. I didn't experience any of this, but he said that, they had cop cars just randomly planted everywhere, empty cop cars. And he said he saw like one or two people throw something at them, like throw like a pebble or whatever. And then other people were like, don't do that because that's what they want. They want us to do that to their cars. And then that car is completely, they want us to do that. So it was a very peaceful thing. I saw some people, they were standing on a bus. One guy was up on a traffic light. But again, they were just there. In fact, according to what they expressed verbally, who let them on and off was, I think, the bus driver himself or herself that let them on and off. Right. So it was a completely peaceful demonstration. And then the cops showed up. And the way it unpacked for me was I just, was walking by, and all of a sudden you see smoke. You see people running the other direction. So I ran toward it to see what was going on. And that was when it started. That was the first car that was on fire. And then, of course, it escalated from there. So what happened to you? How did it get to the point of your cars being hit with rubber bullets?
Yeah, I know, right? It went from 1 to 12,000 really quickly, actually. So it was peaceful. And basically, I was so where we were was right behind where the Orange Grove shopping center is. So that's sort of where the sheriff's department, I think, decided to take a stand. And I am fully of the belief that the reason they did that is because they were trying to preemptively protect the private property at the mall there, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But there was no need for this. The protesters were peaceful. I had just come from the East LA protest, which there was very little cop presence at. So my guess is they didn't feel the need to protect the Boyle Heights neighborhood, right? Because that's a poor neighborhood. So I left the East LA protest. I came to the Beverly Hills or the Beverly Fairfax one, and pretty soon after we got there, just mayhem started breaking out. But it was the police that started spraying the crowd with rubber bullets. So
just preemptively, like they just kind of started like going up to the crowd and just started unloading.
Well, they weren't going up to the crowd. They had stationed, and if you look through some of the footage, I'm going to continue to upload it. Status Quo has some of it up now. They had stationed snipers on top of a synagogue, which was right across the street from the Orange Grove. And these guys were up there they look like AK-47s, but they shoot rubber bullets. But let me be really clear. These rubber bullets are very painful. I was shocked by them. And in retrospect today, that was a really dangerous situation that I was in because I didn't have any riot gear with me. I didn't anticipate this happening. I was gassed by the cops to the point where I actually did think I thought that was it. I thought, this is it. This is the end. I'm going to die. I could not breathe. I'll get to that in a second. But so they started spraying these rubber bullets. And one of the kids that got hit in the head with a rubber bullet is currently now, just so folks understand how lethal these are, is in the hospital in intensive care with a brain bleed. I've been contacted by the kid's stepfather because honestly, they're steady.
How old is he?
Oh, God, maybe 22, 23. He looked like. No. I don't know for sure how old he was, but a young kid. I mean, and he wasn't doing anything. But they were just randomly I got sprayed. I had a visible press credential I was wearing. So the first sheriff that saw my press credential, she came up to me to ask me to leave. I showed it to her, and she went like this. So I mean, at least there were some willing to protect the First Amendment rights of the free press. But at one point, you'll see in the video that Jordan Sheraton put up, I actually lost. You're going to hear me cuss a lot because at this point, there had been a lot of violence. I had been rubber bulleted. I'd been pushed into the street by one of them in front of oncoming traffic. They had thrown tear gas canisters at my car. But I persevered. I was like, I'm going to cover this stuff, right? You guys aren't going to intimidate me. So myself and another photojournalist who was, I know he does freelance work for The Guardian. I'm not sure if he was working for them on Saturday or just doing freelance. But the police, we were the only ones up there. All the protesters were back behind the street. So there was a good 50 feet between the street light and where the police had lined up. And then the protesters were on the other side of the street. So we were really the only ones up there. All of a sudden, they started walking forward and ramming their clubs, like in a line at us. And I'm like looking over and I'm seeing, we're the only guys up here. And it finally dawned on me, they wanted us out of there. So I started.
They did the thing where they kind of rattle their clubs, like it's sort of like their battle movement.
Like he punched me in the rib with one of them. I mean, it was annoying, but please, I'm alive. Like, let's be honest. If I was one of the black protesters, I would have been dead because I called him an asshole. Like I cussed him out. I mouthed off. And next thing I know, they threw a tear gas canister really, really almost right in front of us. So both him and I, you can see in the video, come around the corner and we're both like, we can't breathe. I really could not breathe. In fact, it was so terrible. I didn't realize it was tear gas. And I'm really thankful for some of the BLM protesters that kind of flew in and rescued. They brought me over to the side. They doused my face with what turned out to be, I thought it was milk, but apparently they mix baking soda and milk of magnesia, I believe she said. Anyway, they.
Oh, I did see. I did grab that video that you you posted. So
let's play it because they were. Thank God for them. Like I was really could not breathe. There you go.
I don't know.
So this is you coughing.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Open your eyes. Just open your eyes. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Just open your eyes.
So telling you to open your eyes.
Yeah, and I couldn't breathe. You can hear me gasping. I really couldn't breathe. It was unbelievable.
Would you like some water?
Got it? Need someone to pour it?
I don't know, man. I can't. Like, what the fuck is that shit?
No, I know. I got it like 3 times already.
Take a sip. Lean your head back.
Yeah.
That's not tear gas. What is that?
It's tear gas.
Is it
ready?
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Open. Keep them open. Keep them open.
They got mine.
It's just going to take 5 or 10 minutes. Good.
You're gonna be alright. Fucking assholes.
You okay?
Yeah. They obviously don't want press people to That's the third time.
Now I couldn't hear you exactly. Did you say what a bunch of assholes, or did you say it's just, or did you say it's just a couple bad apples? I couldn't tell.
No, what a bunch of assholes. I was cussing a lot that day. If you want to see me cuss, go to some of the video and you will be like, girl. I had been, at that point, I had just working myself up. I was so angry about what was happening in front of me. I couldn't believe it. So, and he was right.
Was this before or after your windshield got shot?
This was before the windshield. It got progressively worse. So that didn't work. He was right. It lasted about 5 or 10 minutes. My eyes were bloodshot till the next morning. And I had, you can see some of the video later on the day. I actually have milk of magnesia caked on my face at various places. But in that moment, I was like, you know what, fuck this. This is not going to intimidate me. This stuff needs to be seen by the general public because I know the mainstream media is not here. They're up in their helicopters. God knows what kind of commentary they're giving you because they're not going to get out of their helicopters and get on the ground there. It's too dangerous.
Right.
And obviously it was dangerous. I mean, if I had foreseen what was going to happen on Saturday, I would have showed up with a helmet, goggles, and a face mask. That was really necessary if you wanted to be safe in that environment. They were randomly also shooting tear gas canisters every few minutes. And the rubber bullets, if you look at the footage, like for 2.5 hours, were nonstop. They didn't stop. They just kept shooting.
Yeah, a buddy of mine, he wore goggles. I think we're getting a little feedback.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, he wore goggles and he, it's pretty funny because he was like, yeah, these are essential. And I thought about it. I'm like, well, next protest, if I wear goggles, I'm actually not going to be in the best for safety of everybody around me because my eyesight is really freaking bad. So
yeah, you can get the have your glasses underneath.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If I wear goggles, it'll be really. I'm just gonna be like, yeah, we gotta. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not really. And they're gonna be like, this guy's an inside agitator. Like, no, I'm not. I just can't see anything. I have my goggles on.
And all your footage is going to be blurry, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be really terrible. They'll be like, Ron just filmed a tree for like 40 minutes. Where does he think he is? He doesn't.
Yeah, right. Like, what is he looking at?
What is Ron looking at?
Another thing that was going on is the police department. I'm assuming it was the police department. There was some sort of jammer in effect because I could no longer get cell service or streaming. I couldn't stream from the site. And then, which really upset me was later on, another girl, I have this on video, got shot in the face by one of the rubber bullets, and it broke her nose. She also was taken to the hospital. But we were trying to call 911 and couldn't get. And I always thought that with these jammers, they at least allow for emergency signals. Like, you should still be able to call 911. So I don't understand the details, the tech details of that. I'd be interested in speaking to someone that had that sort of knowledge and expertise. But all I know is it was really difficult to even make a phone call. It was impossible to stream. And, if you're going to rain the crowd with rubber bullets like that and tear gas, it's really imperative that you have emergency personnel available. I mean, this was wild to me that they simply didn't care. Yeah.
Well, so where were you exactly when the thing happened with your car? Like, were you trying to get out or get to another area?
Yeah, we were. At that point, we were trying to get out. So things kept escalating. We were there for about 2 hours. So at that point, this was after the other girl had the broken nose. I had more footage of just a host of things that happened in between. But it became really clear to us that it was going to get worse. I knew that they had started to make arrests because in fact, I think this is partly why they wanted to drive us out of there, is I heard them talking on their walkie-talkies about corralling people into the alley and through the parking lot intentionally so that they could pick them off. So the idea was to tell protesters to exit over this way, but really what they were doing is corralling them into a location that they couldn't escape from, and then they just were going to do a mass arrest. So I knew that was happening. I told my camera guy to go warn the protesters. And I'm pretty sure that one of the LAPD officers heard me having that discussion because we were pretty close to their line. So that was bad of me. I should have had more forethought to be a little bit more quiet about that. But after he left to do that is when all that ruckus came with them shoving us out of the area they were in and onto the street. So you tell me, Ron. I mean, it seems to me that they absolutely did not want us there covering it. A second sheriff, after he saw my credential, was like, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you have a credential. Get the fuck out of here.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, they were not messing around. They were very combative. So when you see all this video of me like fucking this, blah, blah, like, this is why.
Yeah, well, and it's happened. It's happened all over the country. I mean, and of course, Fee and everyone at the Convo Couch had a similar experience where they were cornered. Which I'm going to have them on the show later this week, and we're going to show all that. And then you have what happened to Status Quo in Washington D.C. Yeah, you have what's going on in D.C. in general. You have everything that happened in New York. To tons of just everybody in general. I mean, people I know who are comedians and journalists and podcasters and what have you, and just everyone in general.
No, they went after John Cusack and his bike.
That's right. John Cusack was protesting in Chicago, and they went after him. And here's something. So Fiorella shared this, but this is from Boston. Fiorella from the Convo Couch. The cops are now sabotaging their own car so that they can try to blame it. So let's watch this.
And they're gonna blame it on the protesters.
Exactly, right?
And they put fuck 12 on it.
What are you doing with that stick?
They're sabotaging their own
are committing
car.
a crime right now.
Yeah.
They have dogs at the ready. The cops are breaking the window to their car.
Do a cooler trick?
The cops are breaking the window to
Yeah, spit on that car.
You get your anger out.
Oh, yeah.
You pull a hammy on that one?
Give it another whack.
Put your back into it.
I think you got
I do like the fact that they're trolling the cops, and the cops don't even care. They're just like, we just want to beat the shit out of something, and we're getting to do that. We're in our element right now.
Right.
This is what we do. This is why we wanted a badge in the gun in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's watch this.
You guys are just tuning in. The police have just damaged their own car, and they're gonna blame it on the police department. I need you guys to spread this
I think you meant protesters. They're going to blame it on the protesters.
Yep.
message as far as you can.
Look, where was all
That
this
guy's
looting
pissed
going on.
right there.
Yeah, it's oh man.
I didn't see any looting,
careful.
Ron. All
I got
day. Did
mace.
you?
The cops.
I'm sorry. What was that?
I'm sorry. I did not see any looting the entire day. Did you? Where is all this looting that
Oh.
Main Street is talking about?
I saw zero.
Did you
And
see some? I saw zero. Exactly. Where?
it's so incredible to me that the corporate media, instead of, I mean, there's evidence of the cops planning things, of the cops instigating violence. There's report after report of people who were there. I have yet to find anyone. Whose experience was different than mine was, where they're just like, yeah, it was totally peaceful. Then the cops showed up. That's what happened.
Yep.
And in Minneapolis, that initial AutoZone window was broken by a cop.
By a cop. We know this.
Just we see the same story, and yet the corporate media parrots this evidence-free conspiracy, which is what it is. That it's outside anarchists from some unknown place. Like maybe they're from Mars, Tina.
My favorite is the Russians.
That's right.
Russians.
No, it might be. Oh yeah.
Because there was no American white supremacy before Russian trolls existed. Like, what are they talking about?
That's the problem. Russian trolls have convinced us that institutional racism and the murdering of innocent black people is just something. It's not real. It's not really happening. It hasn't really been happening for decades and decades and decades, and we haven't learned anything since 1992. That's not. It's just Russia hypnotizing us that's the case. It's
just a crazy. It's a crazy argument. It's
crazy. When I saw there was that New York Times article that said like, yeah, Russia is sowing this discord. At that point, I was just like, okay, it is a red herring cult. Yeah, that is what they are, a red herring cult. There is no other way to define that. It is insane. It is like you need serious mental help at this point. Like you need.
I agree, Ron. But here's the thing that I think is really obvious and should be obvious to everybody is that income inequality is one of the greatest drivers of this civil unrest that we're seeing now, and I don't think it's going to dissipate. When you're living in a society that's more or less turned into a corporate oligarchy, where more than 80% of the new wealth that's been created the last couple of years has gone to the 1%, you've now taken away their jobs, you've given them $1,200, which is nothing. You kidding me? What the average rent in Los Angeles is $2,400 a month. The people most affected by all of this stuff are going to get angry. And now you're adding to the fact that you've literally murdered an innocent man, and you think that there's that Russia's the problem here. I don't understand why this is even a conversation, but I don't see it dissipating, and I don't see either party addressing the root problems. And until they do, they should know. Here's the thing: they should fear us. The Placone needs to start fearing the rest of the country, because until they do, they're not going to fix it.
Trump is hiding right now. Trump is hiding. He is hiding in a bunker.
Okay, but what about Nancy Pelosi? This isn't just the Republicans, folks. Like,
she is hiding. She is hiding in a
ice cream bunker.
She is. She's in she has one of those, those coloring books that we had as kids, where it's like there was like that ice cream palace. She has one of those, and she's there. Right. Well, no, we're gonna get to leadership in a second, because Joe Biden had quite the doozy. We're gonna hit that in a minute,
okay.
but before we do, let's stay in California for a minute. So
yeah, sorry, I forgot to finish the window thing. I got sidetracked. My apologies. Basically, what happened was, as we were leaving, and everybody was leaving at the same time, right? So there was traffic in front of us, cars. We couldn't go faster than what we were. If we hit, that would have entailed us driving on the sidewalk and running people over. So that's just how it was. We were trapped in there. So, but at this particular junction in time, I'd had so many altercations with both the sheriffs and the police over some of the stuff that they were doing, that they knew what my car was, because they'd already thrown tear gas at it, right? They saw me, covering things and coming out of the car and going back in the car. But they were so we were behind everybody else. We were the very end, the last car out, and I see them behind me, and there's 50 officers behind me. They all have their rubber bullet guns. They're shooting. They're just continuing to shoot. They never stopped. And I heard a thump, and I thought to myself, that's either my tire, my fender, or my window.
Oh, geez.
Wasn't the window yet, though. Wait, it gets worse. So I'm like, that was probably, and I looked. So I rolled down the window and I started videotaping. And I said to the cops, I said, what are you doing? Is this necessary? You're going to harm my car. Like, you've already thrown tear gas at it. And I'm like, you want to break my window now? Or I said something to that effect. I can't remember exactly. But then the guy, you see in the video, the guy literally turns the gun towards my window and shoots it.
Wow. Wow.
And so then I say to him, I'm like, and who's going to pay for that property damage? And then the guy says to me, call the city.
Wow. Wow. Sheesh. And that's all in the status quo video? That's like...
No, not all of it. Part of it is, yeah.
Okay, so this is all still coming out.
It's also coming out. I have like 2.5 hours. So,
wow.
So Jordan Zetter did a great job actually making this 60-minute video report that tells a really good tale of what happened. Is really well done. But yeah, I'll upload onto Rockfin or whatever more of these videos. I also, had the opportunity to speak with some of the protesters when I was in the trenches, and I used in trenches seriously because this felt like a war zone. And we were literally hiding in the alcoves in front of the retail outlets there. They have the walls that come in for the door in some of these areas. We were hiding in these little crammed areas because the bullets and the tear gas were just flying. It wasn't safe. So I took that opportunity to speak with a lot of them. So I'll upload some of those interviews too.
This is, I mean, it's like just stepping back for a second and just thinking about the world at large. I had a dream last night that my wife and I were just, we were waiting to be seated at a very nice Chinese restaurant. Just and it wasn't a real restaurant. It was just like, this is just totally a dream. But in like the dream, I knew this was a Chinese restaurant that I enjoyed a lot, and I was real excited to eat there. And we were just waiting, and everybody was just sitting there pleasantly, and we were just having conversations. And then I woke up I woke up and I realized it's morning, and my wife actually was looking at some stuff on Twitter and Instagram, trying to find out, okay, so what's going on today? Yeah. What's happening today? And right away, I was just brought back to reality that it is really crumbling before our eyes. It really is. And this is a failed state. I mean, there's no getting around it. Like, the experiment as we know it is over. And, in many ways, it needed to end. I mean, it was on its way out. This just exacerbated the inevitable. But wow.
Yeah, no, I agree. This will just tell you everything, Ron. So, my neighbors, I've lived in my house here for quite some time now. So my car, the window guy is coming tomorrow to fix it. So it's still right there, all broken and crazy looking. There's dents and tear where you can see the tear gas cans.
Are you going to build the city?
Oh yes, I'm going to
build the city,
Ron.
You have the video evidence. You have the video footage. Be like, hey, this guy who I'm sure is just one of a few bad apples. This guy, he said, I get to build the city.
At this point, yeah. So, but I'm out there and I'm taking photos because they needed the documentation. They needed the JPEG sent to them. And my neighbor's outside walking the dog, and he stops, and I didn't have to even tell him. He looks at me, looks at the car, he goes, let me guess. The LAPD did that.
Yeah.
I'm like, correct.
So.
And he's like, yeah, I saw they were arresting journalists last night. I'm like, they were.
Yeah.
So
let's go to Pasadena for a second. Did you hear about this? So this happened. This was a protest in Pasadena, and here is a stay-at-home protest guy, or not the other thing. The don't tread on me. Yeah. Anyway, here he comes.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So he drove this through the protesters in Pasadena, and
what the hell?
Yeah. And I think he yelled something too. And then later this happened too. So in the Pasadena protest, everybody was being pretty much peaceful, except for a few agitators who weren't actually the police. They were just people who were opposed to
MAGA crew. Well, you heard about the guy in Santa Monica that had a gun, right? Did you see this? Holy crap!
So this is Pasadena as well.
On Twitter, some guy, not a cop. Some guy was rocking around with a gun pointing at protesters. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
So, yeah, I didn't hear about that. I did see, I mean, I know there was some like counter stuff going on in Santa Monica. I did see the video. Did you see the video of that one woman who was just yelling at everybody, Trump's going to get reelected? Did you see that? That was the that was the ultimate, like, you don't realize how
to the BLM folks how to protest properly and
yes,
wanting to segregate.
Yes, yes. It's like, I mean, you watch that and you're like, you have no idea how ignorant you are right now. Like, you don't know. Like, there's a little part of me that pities you, but it's like, whatever.
Right.
You're doing this in public. You're old enough to know better. You're a grown woman. You're old enough to know better. I'm sorry. I can't have. But she was just like, Trump's going to get reelected now, which I don't think she realized what she was really saying, because what she was really saying there was, hey, black people, I know you're tired of being systemically murdered by a racist, out of control gang known as the police, but you're going to have to shut up for a little while longer, because maybe if you do, all the racists who like Trump will forget to vote. I mean, that was literally what she was saying. That was literally what she was saying.
Speaking of Ron, did you see, and I can't think of his name, one of the DNC strategists posted a thing a few days ago about why the BLM protesters had to be peaceful and not violent, because if they were violent, Biden was less likely to win. But if they got violent, he was likely to lose. Like, and he was making this argument publicly on Twitter, and I'm like,
I'm so sad I missed this gem.
Who do you think you are? Like, it was shocking to me. I'm like, these folks say this stuff in public and they don't hear themselves. They think that they're firewall. They don't see that this is racist. It's like, number one, no group is monolithic in its beliefs. And if you want to make the claim that they are, you're racist. And you're not listening to the community, and you're taking away individual agency. So it's just wrong. Stop doing it. And I see liberals doing this stuff all the time. They don't hear themselves. And honestly, all this guy really cared about, right, was winning the president's, winning the presidency.
Yeah.
How is that being an ally? And you're right. Look, I mean, somebody just got murdered, and you're going to tell this community how and how not they should be behaving? Fuck all the way off.
Yeah, well, and also, how is it being an ally entertaining the fantasy that all of these issues began with Trump? They didn't.
They didn't.
This has been going on for decades. This has been going on for decades.
Yeah,
exactly. Trump certainly hasn't helped the matter. Don't get me wrong. Trump's terrible. I'm not saying he isn't.
He's more blatant about it. He's ripped the Band-Aid off of the more subtle forms of racism that we've seen. But the racism in and of itself is systemic, and it's been here, and it hasn't gotten worse. It's just more exposed, I think.
Yeah. So check this out. Here's another guy at Pasadena. Yeah.
Like Charlottesville all over again.
Now reports are saying that guy is okay, the guy who was on the hood of the car, fortunately. And here's a little bit of good news. They did catch that dude.
Oh, good.
Dude driving the car. So they did catch the dude. Driver seen speeding away from the demonstration with protester on hood in Pasadena, arrested. Benjamin Hung, 28, of San Marino, was arrested soon after police said he drove away from a line of protesters, one still clinging to the hood of his car.
So San Marino, just so everybody's clear that doesn't live in California or in this area, is a very old, wealthy neighborhood. It's sort of like the Beverly Hills of the East Side. Would you agree with that, Ron?
I think that's fair. You've actually been in the area a lot longer than I have, so that makes sense to me. I mean, I've still only been in the area since 2016. So admittedly,
okay.
Yeah, no. So especially like further, seldomly do I go east, because like I live in Pasadena, so I have some friends in Claremont, so sometimes I go out there. And then lately, because of the world of quarantine and social distancing, I've been going to the drive-in movie theater in Pomona, because that's a fun social distancing activity. You're just in your car. That was like the summer activity meant for social distancing, y'all.
Yeah, and Ron, here's the other side of this equation. I'm a little bit concerned about the COVID issue still. Yep, because Saturday, obviously, all bets came off in regards to social distancing, and like I'll tell you this, I was not thinking about it after all that mayhem broke out. And I'm worried that, several of the protesters are possibly going to get sick from that. I mean, they didn't even this is one more thing the LAPD didn't consider when they decided to create chaos.
Yeah, I mean, it's
and here's the thing,
difficult.
It on its own, these people would eventually gotten tired and gone home. Why was this necessary?
It was completely, I mean, everybody said it's like if they just would have let people do, because you know what? We can go throughout the country, and there have been those several, for instances, where the cops did actually set down their weapons and listened.
Yeah, right?
And you know what happened? You know what happened to those cops? You know what happened to them? People cheered. That's what freaking happened. People cheered, and they walked together. That's what happened. So who's instigating the violence?
The LAPD has a history of doing that, though. I don't know. I can't think of a period of time when, and look at, if you talk to some of the BLM folks, they'll tell you this. The LAPD is one of the most murderous departments in the country. Although they don't get as much press, right? Because people see, they see Los Angeles and California in general as a more leftist state. But, that's not necessarily the case, folks. And look at the documentation, you can see quite clearly. And, we've had a DA, Jackie Lacey, that's refused on more than one occasion to prosecute police officers, including, and this is really important, a police officer that Charlie Beck told Jackie Lacey to prosecute. When you have the head of the department saying this particular police officer should be prosecuted and you refuse to do that, you're part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. You mentioned it's like, oh, well, people think like California's got this figured out. It's such a leftist place. It's like, look, I've lived in two of the so-called progressive utopias of the United States. I've lived in the Pacific Northwest before. I live in Southern California now. I've also lived in some very red states. I've lived in Tennessee. I've lived in Indiana. I grew up in, Pennsylvania's a swing state, but I grew up in Pennsylvania. In my experience in those places that I think are, all different in their own regard, there is no progressive place in the United States. It does not exist.
It doesn't exist.
Are there differences? Yes. When I lived in Tennessee, I never was able to vote for anything. Whenever I got to vote, it was to vote to not set women's rights back 30 years. That was what I was voting. I was voting to try to stop that. Whenever I went into the voting booth, it was like, we got to try to stop this because they're trying to make a thing that pretty much outlaws Planned Parenthood, that pretty much outlaws abortion, that pretty much outlaws this. Those were the only votes I was ever able to cast when I lived in Tennessee. Is California and Seattle, are those places a lot different? Yes, absolutely. But as far as being some actual progressive place, nowhere close. Such a place does not exist in the United States. Maybe Eugene. I don't know. I've never lived in Eugene. Maybe Eugene. But so here we have, this is the LAPD trying to do some PR. So I'm sure you've seen this video already. Let me pull it up here. This is where there is a deliberate, there is no ambiguity here. They straight up, what'd they do with the video?
Oh, did they take it down?
I think they took down the actual video.
Oh, no.
That's what it looks like. Yeah, there was a here. Let me refresh it, see if that changes it. Here, let me see. Here, let's see if this is it. Maybe this is the footage.
Is that
so there we go. This is the above footage. Yeah. This is the above footage. And if you see it from below, you'll see, that they actually, there was someone under that tire. So,
I know.
So this was not the vid. So there you go. You see, and there's someone under that tire. You can see them right there.
Oh, Mike, I have ever seen this.
So I wanted to see they had the straight on footage earlier. They've since taken it away. But yeah, so that's something. And here's what the LAPD
is going to be getting sued all over the place from what happened over the last few days. There's no two ways about it. I have had multiple folks contact me for footage because of injuries, and their attorneys need the footage. So I know what's coming. And the unfortunate reality is the taxpayer is ultimately picking up the dime on that, including my property damage. What was the reason for that guy shooting my window? None. He was just being a spiteful RoboCop jackass.
I think that's a fair. I think that's a fair summary. Spiteful RoboCop jackass. I think that's actually on his. That might actually was that his name?
Yeah, that's his name.
That's his LinkedIn profile. That's. So, by the way, here's what the LAPD had to say about this. Sorry, this was what I was looking for. LAPD headquarters. We are aware of video circulating on social media of an LAPD patrol vehicle involved in a traffic collision with a pedestrian during one of several spontaneous protests occurring throughout the city. A traffic report was taken, and the incident was under investigation. That's in reference to the video we just showed you, where you saw them running over somebody, backing up, then going forward and hitting someone. I responded, you misspelled a cop car intentionally ran over a protester. You made a spelling error there, LAPD. You made a little spelling error.
Okay, what about the spokesperson? Did you see this? Who's now put her account into protection, but was coming up behind everybody's posts over the weekend and saying, shoot them all, like repeatedly. Have you seen this?
Was this a police officer or just a person?
It was a spokesperson for the police officers union. An attorney note.
I did not see this.
I retweeted it. If you want to go to my Twitter, I retweeted some of it because it's incredible. You read these posts and you're like, considering they've spent the entire weekend absolutely literally just nonstop shooting people with rubber bullets, this is really an incredible and irresponsible thing to say.
All right, here, I'm going to your Twitter right now. We'll take a look at this together.
People need to see this because it's shocking. You're like, wow, you're saying this stuff in public. You're not. Here's the thing that surprises me, Ron. They're not even thinking about finding their edit button because they don't see anything wrong with what they're saying.
Yeah.
That's how far gone they are.
Well, so wait, so how far down is this? Am I close?
Did I get a little cray today? It was yesterday, I think. You're getting close under the videos. There it is, right there.
This is it?
This up one, the screenshots.
Oh.
There you go, right there. See them? Yeah, open up some of those. People should read these. It's crazy.
Okay. Shoot the protesters. Wow. They need to be shot. Can't wait. At last, a reason to shoot them. Oh my God.
Yeah, there was plenty more, but she protected her account and started deleting them when they started getting some attention.
I am not a lawyer, but I do know a little bit about the free speech laws in the United States. And I know for a fact that there are 9 things that aren't protected. One of them is a call to incite violence. Like inciting violence is not protected under free speech laws. That's why when Trump did that thing about like looting and shooting, where he was quoting one of the great racists of the past, that might not have been. I mean, he may have violated free speech laws. I can't, a constitutional lawyer needs to make that ruling, but he may have violated free speech laws there. Like he totally might have, calling for violence towards his own people.
Yeah, is one of the only exemptions to First Amendment rights. And actually, one of the things I said to the police officer was, why don't you believe in First Amendment rights? I think I might have said asshole too, actually, at that point. I was really angry. Because 2 things are happening here. They are infringing on, wait, what just happened? Ron, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you not hear me?
Oh, let's go. Yeah, for some reason, my monitor with you on it went away.
It just went blank for a second?
Yeah.
Probably Russia. I can see you and hear you just fine.
Oh, okay, perfect then. That's fine. But the point being that 2 things are at play here. The first is your right to protest. That is ingrained in the First Amendment. Every citizen has a right to take up his grievances with the government, right? That is tantamount, and it's necessary if you want a healthy democracy. The second is going after the press.
Right.
We should all understand that once you come for the journalists, it's all over, because who's going to document this stuff? You're not going to know what really happened. This is how you really cross over into fascism, which is why I'm hoping the fact that mainstream media journalists endured on Saturday what some of us have endured in the past in silence on our own, because we're smaller journalists. We don't work for CBS or MSNBC, right?
Yeah.
We've seen this stuff happen. I've been arrested twice, so this is nothing new. But the fact that it's now happening to mainstream media journalists, somebody from MSNBC, somebody from NBC, somebody from CBS. And
they're still doing a horrific job.
They're still doing a horrific job. Do you think this would make them more aware?
That's why, when CNN has already tried to downplay what happened They're already, oh, he had these underlying health conditions. He had this, and it is just nonsense because they're hoping, you know what they're hoping for? They're hoping that this cop gets charged with involuntary manslaughter. That's what they're trying for. And the media is being complicit and helping them with it. That is straight up propaganda for the status quo. That is what that is. They are being mouthpieces for the establishment in the most deceptive, deliberative way possible. And Jake Tapper, when does he clutch his pearls? He clutches his pearls when a bunch of people start chanting against Fox News, says that's a violation of freedom of the press. Guess what, Jake Tapper? Freedom of the press refers to the freedom of the press to pursue information without authoritarian persecution, i.e. someone like Tina should be able to film and document a protest without getting her windshield shot out and tear gas thrown at her. That's what freedom of the press refers to. Freedom of the press does not refer to citizens aren't allowed to criticize their shit media. That's not what. So Jake Tapper demonstrated he does not understand what freedom of the press is. He is a corporate mainstream journalist. He doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. Free speech is a contract between us and the government. So him getting criticism, yeah, no, dude, that's not it. You deserve the criticism. And let's be clear, a lot of these pundits that are on cable news, et cetera, they don't really, this is a really important thing to consider. I don't think they really consider themselves to be journalists.
Well,
they know they're doing punditry. They know they're doing commentary. There's a reason that these folks aren't willing to get out there in the field and do what I did on Saturday. It's dangerous. It's not comfortable. It's not glamorous.
It's
not. So they want to sit in their armchair and just, get paid pontificate and get a six-figure salary and really have no clue about what's going on. And I've conversed with many of these folks. In particular, when I was on the road in Iowa and some of the other states during the primaries, obviously you're in proximity of a lot of the mainstream media journalists as well. And I had conversations with a lot of these folks. Most of them really are pretty damn clueless about this stuff because they've long forgotten what it's like to be out in the field, and they have no desire to return to it, which makes me wonder really where their passion was to begin with. Or then you have the other folks that just started out being a TV personality and wanted to remain that way, which is fine. But at least if you're going to do that, at least be concerned with having a commitment to veracity and talk to the folks that are actually out there in the field doing this stuff and get the right information. Don't pontificate about bullshit you don't understand.
I'm with you.
Thank you for attending my TED Talk.
No. I'm with you. And speaking of people spewing out bullshit they don't understand, let's go to the opposite end of that and hear from one of the great philosophers of our time, Joe Biden.
Yes.
So here we go. So
whatever comes next is bad.
You can laugh into the microphone, by the way.
Oh, I can. Okay.
Yeah, we like that. Comedians like that. We like it. We like it when the laughter's audible, Tina. We're fans of that.
I'm like, yeah, you are like, because I'm gonna laugh really loud.
Feel free to laugh as loud as you want.
Okay.
All right. So this tweet has been deleted, but the original tweet I referenced here, but somebody fortunately took a screenshot. Wait, am I showing? Yeah, I am. Okay. So here's what I retweeted. This was from Bo Erickson on CBS. Now, Bo has deleted this tweet. Why? Because the corporate media serves the establishment, and the establishment didn't like this tweet. There was a lot of pushback on it, so he deleted it to protect his king, Joe Biden. All right, so here's what it says. Biden said there are a lot of different things that can change about police training. One example, he said, was if cops rush an unarmed person, they could shoot them in the leg instead of the heart. It's a very different thing. So what I tweeted, I know some of you think that we...
Wait, I need a moment to process that.
Oh, yeah, let it in. Let it in.
He actually said that?
He said that. We're going to be watching the video in a second. But...
Holy shit.
So I responded, and again, Tina, this was just another opportunity for incrementalism. I know some of you think we shouldn't keep allowing bloodthirsty racists to become cops, but now's not the time for purity tests. We can still let bloodthirsty racists be cops, but let's encourage them to shoot to wound instead of kill. People don't want a revolution. That's essentially what Joe Biden's saying there. And by the way, this entire argument of, when an unarmed person rushes you, Well, it's a bullshit. It's a red herring argument. When an unarmed person rushes you, because the issue isn't that all these people are getting murdered because they're rushing these cops.
They're not rushing the cops.
They're not rushing cops. George Floyd didn't rush cops.
Okay. You don't get to
Even then,
fucking shoot.
Exactly. So even entertaining this red herring, which is just a red herring, because that's not what this is. This is happening because of systemic racism that's been going on for decades in law enforcement, and it's been completely unchecked. That's why this is happening. It has nothing to do with unarmed people rushing cops. But let's entertain your stupid red herring for a second and point out why it's still complete bullshit. If you are a cop and you cannot restrain an unarmed person coming at you without using deadly force, you're not qualified to be a cop. They're not armed. It's your freaking job. If you get just like, hey, guess what? If I'm not able to juggle, I can't be a juggler in the fucking circus because I don't have the ability to juggle. I can't do that.
And they're trained in ways to handle that stuff. And let's be honest, they do know how to handle those situations. They pick and choose when to do force of violence and when not to. We've seen how they've behaved when it's come to white supremacist neo-Nazi demonstrations. They are nowhere near as heavy-handed. Explain to me how you can have armed neo-fascist protesters in your face screaming at you and just kind of smile and shrug. Well, because you probably agree with that neo-fascist guy, right? But meanwhile, you have all of these BLM protesters that are more or less peaceful, and you decide to spray them with tear gas and bullets instead. So don't fucking tell me. No, just all of it. It's racist. That's what it is. It's a systemic racism, as you said, that's gone unchecked for decades. And it's gone unchecked by both parties. That's the reality, folks.
So here's some of this video. So by the way, this is why I want to show some of this. This happened at a church.
And teaching a cop who's an unarmed person coming at him with a knife or something to shoot him in the leg instead of in the heart is a very different thing.
He's talking about shooting people in a church. He's in a church. He's in a church.
There's a lot.
This is our country. This is our country. This is the alternative, quote unquote, to Trump.
The Democratic nominee. How the hell is America so collectively stupid that they think the best two people they have are Trump and Biden? I don't understand this. They're both terrible.
It's absolutely insane. I mean, it is absolute. And by the way, for anyone watching this and being like, well, Trump's hiding in a bunker right now. All right.
Look.
Your king's hiding in a bunker. They're both pathetic. They're both
pathetic.
We are plummeting hard, and neither one of them. I mean, they are both beyond clueless. But this just shows you. I mean, this is authoritarian fascism. I mean, this is a guy's talking about this stuff in a freaking church.
Let's just maim him instead. That's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. First of all, it's a complete red herring.
Is why, I mean, these guys say this stuff because they obviously don't see a problem with it. That's what's shocking to me. No part of their edit button went off in their brain saying maybe I shouldn't say this publicly if I think it. No part, because they don't see it. They don't see it as wrong or bad. That's the part that's really scary.
Do you think Joe Biden still has an edit button in his brain?
No, well, there's that.
So
Probably
this is
not. Actually, Ron.
This is
That's
the
fair.
image. This is the image that I shared last night. That kind of just sticks with me. Land of the free.
Wow.
This is Los Angeles. I mean, this is it, Dina. Like, this is real.
This is real. Look, I grew up in Los Angeles. I was first born in America. My dad's from Malmo, Sweden. But I grew up here. This is my city, right? And so I see multiple riots, multiple, series of wrongdoings that the cops have done through the years. And, look, I remember being a kid when the Rodney King thing happened and not really having an understanding of what was going on, but just seeing that video impacted me because I thought, wow, that seems like really wrong, right? And, think about the fact that it's been how many years since then?
Yeah, I mean, that was 92, correct?
Yes, 92.
I mean, and we've learned nothing.
We've learned nothing. If anything, they've gotten more intricate in the way they handle things. I mean, the jammers that they're using on the phone, we got to find a way around that. I mean, you can't communicate with others. You can't live stream. And I don't think they're going to stop doing that stuff. If anything, they're going to invest in more technology in that direction,
So
we have to figure this stuff out.
So to end on like a little bit of optimism, first I'll tell a quick kind of humorous story to lighten it a little bit. So how I learned about Rodney King, because like in 1992, I was very young, and I don't, my parents would watch the news, I wouldn't, and I wouldn't have understood what, so I didn't know about it when it happened, but how I found out about it, do you remember the movie Airheads?
Yeah.
Okay, so for anyone not in the know, Airheads was a movie with Adam Sandler, Brendan Fraser, and I think Steve Buscemi was the other one, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, and it's a super fun movie. They're a band. And, I loved music I still love music, but I really loved music as a kid. So I loved this movie, and I migrated to it. And they take over a radio station. They have toy guns, and they're so angry that they won't play their demo tape. This was back when radio was still a thing that people listened to music. And so they held up a radio station to get their demo play, and it became this big thing, and you follow them through it. And at one point, they're like a big mob forms, right? And the people are on the band's side. They're like siding with the band. They're like, play the frickin' song. And people start chanting Rodney King, because it took place like around that time. And it's kind of funny because there's one guy who doesn't know what that is, and he goes, who's Rodney King? And Adam Sandler character, who is the drummer, Adam Sandler's character just goes, he was that guy. And it was just a goofy moment in a movie. And so that I looked up what Rodney King was after that, because I didn't know what that was. Yeah, I was in grade school and I didn't know. So I looked it up and I learned about that. And that was how. So thank you, Airheads. Thank you, Airheads.
No, I mean, this is stuff that I think kids need to start looking backwards through, especially the young Gen Z Zoomers, I guess they're calling them. They need to know about the history of this. I actually I hunted down one of the original members of the Weather Underground and interviewed him. Yeah, he spent 10 years in jail under FBI, indicted by the FBI for fraud. He was basically making phony IDs for the Black Panthers to get them hidden, get them out of town, get them whatever. So that's what he initially got arrested for. But a lot of these kids aren't familiar with who the Weather Underground is or what some of the actions that they engaged in are. And I do think there's something you can learn from these folks. I mean, they've been through it. This is a guy that planted a bomb in the Pentagon bathroom, right? Hardcore stuff.
Not just that, but I have a lot of conversations with my parents, especially as of recent, and they're, they get it, like they do for the most part get it, but sometimes they'll also say like, well, these anarchists are being bussed in from other places, and I'm just like, yeah, like what do you think is going on? Like, you think that there's some random like car that's like, we are the anarchists who want to destroy, like it's like, do you think that that's what's going on? And I'm just telling them, I'm like, I know. Look, you guys remember when the media was bullshitting about the SDS? And I'm not saying there were never any missteps there. Of course there were. I'm not saying there weren't, but still the media did very much misrepresent a lot of those movements. SDS, Black Panthers, the list goes on and on. In fact, like when you look at the media theory behind it, which this is stuff you and I do because we're big geeks. When you look at the media theory behind this stuff, you find out they've been following the same formula since the 1960s. Right. They had a formula. Todd Gitlin, the media theorist, laid this out. Read his stuff. It's very interesting. They followed a formula of trivialization and marginalization and then just trying to demonize it. They followed the same formula from the 60s to today, and nothing has changed. And I'm just like, look, from Vietnam to the SDS to the Black Panthers, you guys knew what was going on then. The same thing is happening now. And it's Black Lives Matter, and it's DAPL, and it's Occupy, and it's the same thing. The playbook hasn't changed. The power structure hasn't changed. And unfortunately, institutional racism hasn't changed. That's the problem. And,
same problem. And Matthew Steen, the guy I spoke with, he pretty much said that. And, he got into a little bit too about how capitalism undergirds all of these things, and how that was always the main driver for the problems, including the Vietnam War. And I think a lot of the kids don't realize this. The Vietnam War came out of colonization. This was a people fighting for freedom against their colonizers, right? That's what started this. And corporate America, business interests, corporate French, they couldn't have that. So if the playbook that we need to be really clear on is the fact that business interests, corporate interests, the plutonomy, the money and power in politics, the military industrial complex, they all benefit from systemic racism, right? Mm-hmm. This benefits them financially. And until we really contact, that's not to say that you have to be a class reductionist. I don't think that's the argument here. The argument, and which should be clear to folks, is that these two things are intertwined, which is also why I see a real fall of empire right now in the United States. We're having moments where we're questioning whether or not our capitalist economy is really functioning, because if you are in a place where 2 months of less consumption is enough to devastate the economy entirely, maybe it's not the right economy. And the fact
and not only that, but let me also add to that real quick. If you don't have a government that knows how to support the people during that time, or just chooses not to, guess what? You have a government that's working actively against the people. And that's what we have. Our federal government is beyond saving.
100%. If they wanted to save capitalism, if they really cared about doing that, they would have instilled an emergency UBI, because they would have realized that's how you not let consumption dry up. That's you throwing a bone at the masses, even though it's not much, like $2K a month. But that is enough for the plutonomy to placate the rest of the environment and to continue doing what they're doing. But they've gone so far gone in their greed that they can't even see the reality.
They can't even see that.
It's so untenable at this point. It's shocking to me, really.
Well, when you pursue profit above all else, eventually you destroy yourself, and that is where we're at.
Yeah.
But so I want to end on a moment of optimism, and I also want to end on kind of like a cliffhanger, like this is going to be continued. Yes. So here's what I wanted to ask you to end today. Well, first of all, last thing I'm going to ask you is to plug everything. But before we get there, the last question I wanted to ask you as the guest today, I saw on Twitter that you're reading Rules for Radicals, which stem from a conversation. Yeah, we had that conversation on and off mic. On mic, it was sober. On mic, sober. Off mic, it was not sober. So I probably gave a better pitch for it off mic. On mic, I was probably like, on mic, I was probably like, this is a great book and it's very informative and it really lays it all. And I quoted it constantly in graduate school. And off mic, I was probably just like, some people in the department were scared of this, but I didn't give a shit. That was probably, I don't remember exactly. Great. But either way, I convinced you to read the book.
Philosophy and beer go together perfectly.
So you're reading that book. And we'll be discussing it much more in depth soon. But for a cliffhanger right now, like what has been one of your here, let me frame it this way. What's one lesson from that book that people really need right now, presently, right now?
I think the main way he divides up the population is really, really spot on, because he talks about three groups. He talks about the haves, the have-nots, and the have a little want mores. So if we look at terms of the way our society is set up, the haves, we're gonna look at those folks as the plutonomy. These are the 1%ers. And by 1%ers, I don't mean top 1% income earners. I'm talking about 1% in terms of wealth accumulation. So these are the Jeff Bezos of the world.
And they rule shit.
Right. So then have the have-nots. This is obvious, right? These are the working class, minimum wage workers, et cetera, et cetera. Then you have this group in between that I think are really the problem. So these are the have a little want mores, is how he refers to them. I think these folks right here, these are the professional class that might be in the top 1% of income earnings. Again, they're nowhere near the wealth income. So the difference is this: the income earners these are people that are making 150K or more a year.
Yeah, they might technically be in the 1% because our gap has gotten that significant, but they're not competing with the people who really have the power.
That's right.
And,
they're upholding the power because they think one day they could be those folks, which they cannot. I mean, I need to have that conversation with these folks.
Well, yeah, and not just that, but a lot of times they don't realize the bigger problem because it's like they have a significant piece of the pie where they're not needing anything.
They're trying to hold on to that. I think that's Saul Alinsky's point. They're trying to hold on to the little bit of the pie that they have. They're afraid of giving that up and becoming and having less. So they serve the plutonymy. That's what they're doing, right? But I think it's interesting to point out, without those folks, the entire system collapses because these are the folks that are selling everybody beneath them on this idea of egalitarianism and equality of opportunity, which does not exist. If you look at equality of opportunity in the country, it's really clear that that's disappeared. There's very little social mobility that's happening. So, but they have to sell that in order to keep the system functioning. They have to sell the underlings that, and they're only serving those above them that are really just extracting more of their wealth, and they're never going to be part of that system. Because here's the thing to understand: the Jeff Bezos, the Bill Gates, the Donald Trumps, these folks, they don't even have to work a day, and they're going to be the richest people in the world because their money sits in a bank and just earns more money. They might not even have any income. They might strictly be making money off of capital gains at that point, or carried interest, or a host of other things, right? So these are folks that are, they're not. There's such a difference between the 1% when you're talking about wealth accumulation, how much money they have, period, end of story, versus the income earners, right? But these guys right here, they need to wake the fuck up because they are the ones that are upholding the system. Saul Alinsky is right on this. And I thought it was really interesting that he was talking about this in 1971.
Right.
This is a time right when you had the Powell memo, I think is a great starting point. If folks haven't read the Powell memo, you need to look that up and read it. This was a SCOTUS judge that had sent a leaked memo to the Chamber of Commerce about the left and workers' rights and socialism. And if they didn't do something about that, the country was going to become too egalitarian and they wouldn't be able to be rich assholes anymore, right? I'm kind of surmising this in a sort of tongue-in-cheek way.
Works for me.
Yeah. But at the end of the story, this period of time, that early 1970s, is really salient and prescient for these reasons. This is the birth. This is the start of everything that we're seeing coming to fruition today, right?
Because shortly after, neoliberalism got on steroids.
That's right.
Shortly after, and it even goes back to Carter. I mean, it got accelerated a lot with Reagan, but Carter played a role too. He did some things that weren't so great, They
all did little by little. This lesser evil incrementalism that everybody wants to say is so great is not great. Get some purity. I'm not insulted if you tell me I'm a purist at all, because look, you're playing your incremental game is what has brought us to our knees. It's what's brought us to this point today. We cannot do this anymore. It's untenable. You cannot live in a society where there's so much income inequality. You want to sleep, and wait, Saul Alinsky makes this point too, and he's right. If you want to sleep safe and secure at night, you don't want to have to worry about your neighbors stealing from you because they don't have anything, then do something about it. You're going to have to get rid of some of your greed. You're going to have to give up some of your wealth, and you're going to have to look at being more egalitarian in your society, because the alternative is nothing but chaos.
Hey, and there's that guy in Seattle that cut his salary to $70K, gives everyone at the company $70K, right. And he says best decision he ever made.
That's right.
He's like, I don't miss all the dinners with rich people, and I still have plenty. And more people in my company, they're having babies, they're buying houses, and we love what we do, and we love our work, and people are happy. And best decision. Well, So where can people find your work, Tina?
Okay, so I'm mainly, so I help Podcast District 34. You can find that on iHeartRadio, iTunes, all those folks. The video work I do mainly goes onto my Rockfin channel. It's ROKFIN. I do have a District 34 YouTube channel, but I don't put premium content on there. That's just more like archives of live streams, events and things like that. But you can definitely subscribe to that if you're interested in that sort of stuff that I shoot. So this is just me like shooting stuff like protests and all that kind of stuff. DNC meetings, KDM meetings, that kind of stuff. But the podcast, the live stream of the podcast is on Rockfin. So, and the interviews are on Rockfin.
Awesome. So guys, check that out. Check Tina out on Rockfin. Check out her articles. She writes some great articles. We've talked about both in the past. I like her writing.
If you're interested in some of that stuff too, I did write a book called on scientific racism that came out of my master's thesis paper, which it's about race and science and how science has been used to uphold race in the country for a very long time. You can buy that book on my website too if you're interested in it. If you're a philosopher and you like that sort of thing, there's a lot of philosophy in it.
There's philosophy stuff, folks. We talk about it sometimes. So check all that out.
Everybody, I get it, you know.
And Chuck Zalkin, thank you very much. Chuck, thank you for the Super Chat contribution. And you say, thanks, Ron and Tina. Good reports. Thank you very much for that, Chuck. Much appreciated. And Tiger Eve 7, thank you as well for the Super Chat contribution. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Tiger. Tina, thanks for hopping on again. Always wonderful to talk to you. Thanks for being okay. And
really, Ron, when I think about it, in the throes and the heat of the moment, I wasn't really thinking about my safety. But now I'm going like, man, I could have really got myself jacked up.
Well, it's crazy out there, and folks, it's not over. The show is going to probably, there's going to be a lot of random stuff this week. The show will probably,
Ron, my new wardrobe is robo-journalist. Next protest I'm covering, there's going to be one today and a couple later on the week. I am absolutely bringing the helmet, the tear gas, goggles, and vest because it ain't safe.
I think I'm gonna have to bring goggles too, but again, I'm gonna walk into so many people.
Respirator. Don't go to any of these folks, and this is for everybody. Don't go to these protests without a respirator because the tear gas is deadly. I know that it looks like just some smoke when you're seeing it on the TV or if it's at a distance, but if it gets into your lungs, it's really deadly.
All right. Well,
and a helmet too, because the rubber bullets. I mean, this kid's got, he's got a brain bleed from that. That's serious.
That is disturbing. And so guys, the show's going to be a little bit all over the place this week because there are more protests happening. I'll be going to them. And if I bump into you, it's because I have my goggles on and not my glasses. So please forgive me. And Tina, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks so much for joining me. And we're all in this together. We'll be covering this together. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you for your patience because times are going to be a little all over the place this week. And stay safe. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy says meow. She's over there somewhere. But she says meow. And I say peace. Peace.